to Mondays with Monday, where we delve into the pivotal issues shaping lives and communities with a keen focus on amplifying marginalized voices. Hey, I'm your host, E.D. Mondene. Our guest today is somebody special, Darrell Kinsey Bey, a mayoral. He's running for mayor for the 2024 season here in Portland, Oregon, and he aspires to establish moral rejuvenation and implement healing justice through his four core values: human rights, social equity, economic optimism, and environmental justice. Welcome, Brother Darrell. Let's delve
How you doing?
Real quickly into your healing justice and your four core values. What does that look like? Healing justice. I like that.
Thank you for your question, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on your show. It's an honor.
Thank you.
So what I envision is recognizing that the first value that was expressed is the human rights. Human rights is something that we fail to embrace, recognizing that everybody that's a human deserves the opportunity to be recognized as such, regardless of how they identify, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what language that they speak, regardless of what their economic status is, and so on and so forth. I really want that to be something that we take another look at and really examine it. And furthermore, when it comes to economic optimism, infusing it with social equity, we are wanting to no longer behoove people by using buzzwords like diversity, equity, and inclusion and having no substance, having no follow through, trying to inspire people with words only to manipulate them emotionally. These are not quality, approaches when it comes to revitalizing a city.
The checked boxes of social justice.
Absolutely.
The paper justice pieces. Yeah.
Absolutely. And some would even call that paper terrorism.
Okay.
Because when you're emotionally manipulating individuals and you're utilizing their plight as a way to get them to act in a way that you desire for them to do, there's no self-determination embedded in that process. And that's both mean and unjust to humanity as a whole, not even just individuals that are here in Portland, Oregon. It's recognizing that we are more than just Portland, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
It's a worldview. This is happening to us all at the same time. This is not a separate situation.
Well, I think Dr. King reminded us prior to his death that it was no longer going to be about, it's going to be about human rights. It's not going to any longer be about the plight of just the black man. It's going to be about the plight of all men. And it was going to be an unsettling force that would be loosed upon America. And I think that we're there right now. We saw the insurrection on the Capitol steps, and I think that sort of began for us to look at what was really going on in terms of justice and what that really looks like. You've been actively involved in various community initiatives. How has this influenced your vision for Portland, and what key changes or improvements do you aspire to bring to the city?
That's another great question, and it reminds me of the value that we just spoke about in regards to environmental justice. See, environmental justice is not solely dealing with the air pollution, not solely dealing with the poison that's in the soil that we eat for farms like my dad's farm or any other farm or garden in Portland, Oregon or Multnomah County. It's dealing with the fact when little children go outside and they may live near downtown or they may live in the numbers and they see bullets flying or they see needles on the ground. That's an environment. And those children, and which are our children, they deserve to have an environment that's more copacetic to their growth and development in society.
So you're talking about environmental and climate justice all in the same breath. What is your answer to those things?
I would like to address the family unit.
Okay.
The family unit's been eradicated and discombobulated for a very long time here in the United States of America.
How do we deal with that in terms of climate justice and environmental justice, incorporating the family unit? What does that look like?
Great question. Family-based public health. Family-based public health initiative.
We're sharing this little bug tonight. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll
Absolutely.
get there.
Absolutely. I'm glad I got that out. Family-based public health is the approach to assisting family units. So providing not only education, but also allowing the family to be able to have a building block that they can build off of. What do I mean by that is recognizing that when a two-parent household is able to support children, they are more often susceptible to more success. Okay. Now, because our society is a little different and some two-parent households are different, I don't think that is my focus in the regards to, one family may have two fathers or another family may have two mothers. That's not my focus or a point of distraction. It's the parents being able to raise the children because we don't want to police the way people do things. Now, me personally, that's something different. I have a wife and she's a woman, I'm a man. However, when it comes to the family being able to work together, not apart, working with even maybe blended families, which I have to do myself, all those dynamics need support when it comes to mental health, when it comes to financial intelligence, when it comes to learning how to grow their own food. We're dealing with sustainability. Mm-hmm. And also the most important thing of them all is civic engagement and understanding what that actually is. Because being a citizen is meshed with civics, which is the responsibilities and duties of citizenship. You and I and all the people here in this beautiful city of roses, they'll never be good quality citizens if they don't know what their responsibilities and duties are.
We have to begin to rebuild this this rose bed that has become a kind of have you ever smelled a rose that was dying? Your diverse background spans from agriculture to youth coordination. How do you believe your multifaceted experiences prepare you for the role of mayor? How does that happen? And specifically in addressing Portland's current challenges, we talked about social, economic, and civil justice. How does this play into this piece where it comes to Portland proper? How do we deal with that?
That is another good question. I appreciate it. So when we look at the school system, the mayoral office doesn't really have a lot of jurisdiction in that department. So what my plan is to really work closely, not only with the teachers and the admin of the school districts that we have here in Portland, but also superintendents, and if it is possible, the superintendents that govern the state affairs in regards to education. Because there's a lot of schools that I have been able to have the privilege of working at, and I see a lot of grass just everywhere, and I see a lot of rain that goes into those garden beds that have no food in them. And I constantly hear students, every day, because I work in a school district, I hear them complain about the food. They say, Mr. Bey, it sucks. To be honest, the other things that they say about it, I can't repeat.
Okay.
But they really don't like it. And so what I've recognized, being a student myself, I've recognized that when you come to school hungry, you have a higher chance of not being able to focus in class, which then spills over to the teacher having an issue with that student. And if there's multiple students that have these issues in regards to not being able to eat proper food, being malnourished, or single parent household, with all due respect to those that work really diligently to maintain a household and keep the children on point with their grades and et cetera, it is very challenging.
So are you suggesting that we encourage the students to begin to maintain and to grow, to help agriculturally with these dying beds that you're speaking of, and then adding to their own food source as it relates to school?
Absolutely. The ultimate goal is food sovereignty for Portland, Oregon.
Okay. Your work in the Portland school districts, as you just discussed, is with youth organizations. It's commendable. How do you plan to prioritize educational initiatives and youth engagement as the mayor of Portland?
Well, I think that's pretty simple for the most part. You know, you have individuals like NAYA. You have individuals or organizations like REAP Incorporated, the organization I work for. You have SEI. You have Black Parent Initiative. You have SUN, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods, and the Latino Network, Latino Student Union, Black Student Union. All these different organizations should be encouraged to work together.
Okay.
I would like to call it silo eradication. That is what Portland deserves, not just needs. They deserve this. This is what we deserve. And if we embrace what it is that we're owed and what we deserve, we can be able to manifest joy in our lives and in our city. This is common sense politics. You know, I don't have all the answers, but I do have a passion to be able to uplift people and to encourage them to be better than they were yesterday. These are foundational things that people say, oh, it's corny. No, this is righteous.
Well, I think that just answers my point. The word I was looking for earlier with Dr. King saying that it was no longer going to be about civil rights, but it was going to be about human rights. And we're talking about the grassroots understanding of what human rights really are. Everybody working together. You know, we all know that when you stir from the bottom, what? Everybody rises. Isn't that right? Given your involvement in BIPOC, what we call BIPOC is the Black, Indigenous, and People of Color networking communities, how do you plan to address social and racial equity and its concerns within the city, particularly where we have the marginalized neighborhoods and marginalized populations? You know, it used to be North Portland right here, west side of Martin Luther King Boulevard. Now they're in Gresham, right?
Right.
So how do we do that?
I would say that individuals that work with organizations like the Albina Trust, not only them, but the ethos that they're striving to have individuals repatriate to the former locations that they priorly living at or their grandma was living at, to be able to bring more people to the city. Because unfortunately it's on a decline. And if things continue the way that they have been, we will have less and less people moving. Unfortunately, I just got a text message from a friend of mine who I actually worked with, who no longer lives in Portland nor Oregon. They live in California, ironically, of all places. But that's where they live. And that's continuing to happen. So you don't want a city to be on decline. You want it to be a place that not only people are sent to by certain individuals that desire to pay people's way here for nefarious reasons, but we want to be able to invite individuals to know that when they come here, it's time to work. It's time to put some things in action.
This is a good time to elaborate on your experience in urban agriculture. In the BIPOC community, and your views on sustainability initiatives within Portland. What does that look like?
So, unfortunately, there was a friend of mine who had suicided on my campaign journey thus far.
Oh, my goodness.
He inspired me to take a closer look at what sustainability looks like in regards to neighborhoods and how this can create a more, you could say, joyful environment, from the display of how sidewalks are, I guess you could say, implemented on the streets, to the colors of the sidewalks, to the colors of buildings, to even the gardens being in communities. So you notice we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back to the seed.
We have to be more than just a red rose. We have to be a yellow rose, a pink rose, and all those other kind of roses. Doing the Black Lives Matter movement and doing that whole debacle and that litany of stuff that happened in downtown, we've not really recovered from that. And there's a lot of homelessness here. So an issue with safety in Portland has become key. How do you envision fostering safer communities within Portland and ensuring that the city is a safe space for all of its residents, and that kind of a welcoming environment that you just got through talking about?
That's a great question. So, without wanting to sound like I'm making excuses for anyone, I will say that the first point that we spoke about was human rights. Mm-hmm. When we deal with human rights, we also have a word that's called empathy that we have to really bring home to our heart. Because individuals who are unhoused are human beings, first and foremost, and they did not get there because they wanted to be there. There are some particular isolated situations and individuals that literally intentionally do not want to live in a traditional home. Mm-hmm. I'm fully aware of that. However, the majority of the individuals that live out in the streets, that are still out in the streets right at this very moment in the cold, they want to be with their families. And some of their families disown them because of the way that they identify, or what religion they may have embraced, or what name they may even want to call themselves.
So how do we weave that empathetic blanket?
We have to be willing to make some sacrifices.
Okay. What kind of sacrifices?
Everyone's sacrifice is going to be different. Mine will probably be the most because my actual life is on the line in regards to my level of leadership that I'm bringing to the table, and the people who are working with me, and the people who are putting their reputation on the line to support me.
You were talking about weaving empathy into the climate of government, which is an extremely difficult thing to do because they don't match up. How do we weave that empathetic blanket that brings the kind of results that you're talking about in a multicultural cross of people, and looking at the issues that keep them from the upward mobility that we want them to see, without just sweeping them under the carpet and saying that you're not here, and hiding our homeless and hiding our social issues? How do we do that?
Well, intentionality definitely is the big thing that comes to my mind, as well as recognizing what moral rejuvenation actually is.
But what would we be intentional about?
So being intentional about recognizing that our issues in this society are moral and spiritual on a profound sense. And in a more simpler sense, it's social and economic. And so when we recognize these things, we have the capability to then be able to press forward with looking around our environment, right? Looking at situations like the 3 or so acres on Gateway near Fred Meyer is just a bunch of barren land that next to it is a former Elks Lodge, I believe, that now is owned. I wouldn't mention who owns it, but I know who owns it. And that organization is planning on building a specific facility for the community. However, that building has been there for over 10 years. And then all that grass area is a perfect place to actually build structures for people to actually live in. Mm. Then there's another building that has been dilapidated for 30 years in Hollywood neighborhood. And the conversation is, we have nowhere to put in these individuals and house them. We don't have the resources. Well, we have to be intentional about readjusting the zoning laws. We have to be able to help assist with the streamlining of the building permits so the contractors and the builders and the developers, they can actually get to work and do their job. We can't hold people back and dangle a carrot, and say, hey, you have to go through this process before we do these things.
Wow.
In addition to the solar panel calamity that's taken place, where it takes 18 months for people to even get the proper permits to even put the solar panels on the buildings.
Wow. Speaking to that, what would be your top priorities on focusing on the mayorship during your first term? What would be, we have a popular candidate that says, I will be a dictator for the first day. We don't know who that is, but
not a clue.
What would your focus be? Where were you going to make the first changes? What are you going to hit first?
Establish synchronicity.
Okay.
And I'm glad you asked this question because I've been planning for this plan for the first, it's like 30 days or so from November 5th. Like, that's where I want to really get started. There's official, ceremony that takes place January 1st. I'm aware of that. But I want to hit the ground running November 6th. Be able to assist with the recognizing what's actually taking place with the bureaucratic structure that we have, and how sufficient or efficient is it.
Well, it's going to be a big climb because it's a panel now of 14 rather than 5, okay, or 6, whatever it was.
For the council, yes, and then you have the 30 so departments that have been broken down to about 10 or 12 divisions.
Yeah, so that means a deeper collaboration. How are you going to collaborate with these stakeholders to achieve the kind of goals that you want to see met?
That is another great question. I would say that the most important thing is allowing people to know who I am. I mean, because I don't have any intentions on being a stereotypical politician in every aspect of that phrase.
And who are you?
I am a young man, emphasis on young, with no discrimination to anyone.
Okay.
I'm a young man that is married and faithful to my wife, my faith, and my family, and my country. Because I'm an American citizen, and although we have negative experiences and a lot of trauma dealing with the red, white, and blue, I want to change the perspective. There's several men that have, and women, that have changed the perspective that we just kind of forgot about some of those principles. And we have to hone in on those. We have to be principally based. We have to have a value system. We have to evaluate our moral compass. Like, that is the foundation. So if you're building a house, my wife's big in construction, so I've learned this perspective as well as my father in dealing with agriculture. But the foundation has to be stable. That foundation is morals, values, and principles. We're not talking about being a religious person. We're not talking about being a spiritual person, because those are buzzwords that some people are uncomfortable talking about. We're talking about morals, values, and principles. You can even throw ethics in there. We have to have that as the foundation and be able to have an understanding of what those mean to each other, and then we can move forward. Now, if people want to resist that, that is when I guess the phrase of dictator comes in, where you have to just move out the way, because this train is moving, and it's moving in a direction for us to be revitalized. That's it. That's the focus. And how we do that is by intentionally working together, eradicating silos from the city to the state to the governor's office. Like the county, all these levels of government. That's what I'm bringing to the table. Like, if we're not going to collaborate, okay, then you'll see how we do. You'll see how we move. You'll see how we operate, because this is a showcase. This is a pivotal part of our country's experience, because I want to be able to allow the country and the world to be able to see what we're able to do here, because it's important.
Leading government with old school principles that were kind of common case, for most of us. that were born in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, the 50s, et cetera. As a representative of various organizations and communities, how do you intend to advocate for diversity and those voices that are not normally heard and ensure representation for all the residents of Portland rather than the very few?
That's another great question. So in my work, I'm a youth advocate. I advocate for the youth.
So you're only going to advocate for young people?
No, not
Is there a forum
not
for the
necessarily.
old people? Because, hey, I don't want to be in there.
Oh, we got room for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the spirit of advocacy, though, right? Those who are vulnerable, those who are led to believe that they don't matter, led to believe that they're incompetent, that they're incapable of making input into the society, has been my experience with the youth. And so from there, I go to the parents. I advocate for the parents, and then from there, advocating for the parents, I advocate for the teachers, and then from the teachers, I advocate for the admin, and I try to create an ecosystem that can be duplicated, which is what I'm striving to do as mayor, is taking that blueprint and scaling it up just a little bit to be able to create an environment where we can really make some things happen. I think a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid of change, and we've heard this before I was even born, before my father was born. We heard this conversation.
Well, change has never been a popular subject in any generation.
Yet every day we wake up in the morning and change our clothes, and no one gets afraid.
Mm-hmm. Some people don't.
Yeah. So the thing is, we want to create an environment that is centered around the neighborhood associations. There's 95 of them. And so we want to be able to bolster the aspect or the spirit of what you were saying, diversity, equity, inclusion, with the neighborhood associations.
You know, how do you propose to drive economic growth and create job opportunity within our city, and especially for the underrepresented groups and small businesses? Small businesses in Portland suffer the greatest. I don't even want to start there, but what are your thoughts around it? How are we going to drive our city back to a place of purpose and prominence?
Yeah, we want to create a prosperous Portland. That is indeed the ultimate goal. And how we do that, in my view, is not only being open to other perspectives, because that's very important.
Yeah.
But I really believe that through the avenue of agriculture and being able to create sustainability for every single individual in the city of Portland, we have a lot of costs that we can eradicate from almost every single business that is here in Portland. Like that in and of itself is a great first step, because everybody eats food and everyone spends money on food. So we cut that cost. That's one thing that definitely is going to be a focus of mine.
Boy, you have a long road to toe. What motivated you to run for mayor, and what do you hope to achieve personally and for the community if you're elected?
That's another great question. When elected, I would say that my goal is to not only motivate individuals to be better, but create an environment for the spirit of moral rejuvenation and healing justice to be in the hearts of people.
Healing justice and moral rejuvenation. Inspiration. How are we going to inspire people to get up and do what we need to do and move forward straight ahead? Damn the bombs and tortillas. Forward straight ahead. How are we going to do that?
Got to be confident and bold. And to ignite people to be bold and confident is being intentional, one, and also being conscious of the world around us, to have more perspectives.
Give me 3 incentives. What are those incentives going to be, and how are you going to attract people by those incentives? What are we going to say to people? What do we have to do? Number one.
Well, number one, we want to establish family-based public health. That's the initiative. Community-based public health.
And that looks like, real quick.
That looks like building a infrastructure for the family unit to thrive and be sustainable.
Okay, number 2.
Community-based public safety.
Wow. How are we going to do that?
We have to be able to have the public introduced to the public safety. We have to involve the public. We can't have the police being the only ones at the table in regards to public safety. It's oxymoron.
And number 3, where are we going?
Socio-ecological infrastructure.
What does that look like?
That looks like food sovereignty, and it looks like creating something that's sustainable in regards to the communities that we live in so they can thrive when it comes to economic development and job security.
So I want you to talk to the people right now for about 40 seconds to say, this is what I need you all to do. What do you need us to do to make those things happen? Because you have a lofty list. What do you got to do?
You have to make some sacrifices. You have to be willing to take some time out of your busy schedule to put some more time into supporting our youth. You got to put some more time into supporting our elderly, and put some more time into connecting with your family and making it stronger. This is a man in the mirror, woman in the mirror, individual in the mirror type of time.
Do you suggest that we understand what the policies look like and what's coming up for us next in our city, and get involved in the community organizations that you talked about, in the neighborhood associations, with City Hall, understand what's happening in our local government, and ask questions, get people involved, get people down to vote, and make everybody understand what's coming next and what we got to do that. How are you going to do that real quick? How are you going to make them go there, push them towards that?
That's a great question.
We need you.
Well, I would say that unpopular answer is it's all on self.
Yeah.
It's an individual volunteering experience. So there's no compulsion for you to do,
You need people to get up off their butts and get down there to the nitty-gritty. If they want change, they have to make the change.
Take ownership of what it is that they are experiencing in their life.
I think that's a good place to stop. Reflecting on the critical importance of sustaining the surge in the effectiveness of city politics is something that we're going to have to take on as a people together. I'm so glad that you were able to be with us today.
Thank you.
And good luck in your run, man. Inclusivity and embracing more equitable futures for all is an extremely important value for anybody and for any city. And I'm glad that you're here. Thank you, Darrell Kinsey Bey. This is Darrell Kinsey Bey for sharing his vision with us as a mayor aspirant. We want to wish you Godspeed on your journey, man. And to our listeners, remember, involvement and bold steps in government make the difference. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And yes, you can. Until next time, stay tuned for more empowering discussions on Mondays with Mondene. And I want to give a shout out to some people. A big thank you for our listeners and for joining us on this episode of Mondays with Mondene. We hope the discussion has shed light on the possibilities that exist if you should get involved in community, and only if, and we hope that you've been inspired to be a part of the solution. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking episodes. Now, I want to say good night to you people, and see you next time. And until then, stay alert and understand that change begins with awareness and action. Inclusive community development is the only way to develop all and any communities, but you must do your part by getting involved. And that's what I said. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and followers. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a thing on Mondays with Mondene. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. Hey, a special shout out to our sponsors, Post Shines, not just a restaurant, but an institution. And man, they got good food. It's located at 8139 North Denver, right here in the heart of Kenton. And you can expect the best soul food this side of heaven. Aunties and Tanties daycare services, Adorn Electric, they really light up your lives, and I'm grateful for their support on this podcast. You can visit me right here on Sunday mornings at Celebration Tabernacle in Portland, Oregon. I'm also for a preacher, and pretty good too. And a special thank you to our technical staff, Dion, Robin, Andy, and Paul. Not one of them is bigger than the other, and they all stand tall. These are the guys who make this podcast possible. God bless you, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye. Hey, gang, I've got exciting news. I've just finished my memoirs, and writing them was, wow, a roller coaster, but I'm glad that I did it for me and for you, and it's a way to get to know Edie Montané just a little bit better. What you thought you knew, you didn't know. It's called From Maladies to Melodies, growing up in the South St. Louis projects, and what God has done in my life even to this day. I'm excited to share it with you. Please look for it coming real soon.
Hey, it's time for you to come to Post Shine. Check out that catfish sandwich. Oh my goodness, is that the shrimp po' boy? Man, look at that chocolate chip cake. Man, I need to get over to Post Shine's at 8139 North Denver right now because this food looks delicious. Or call if you'd like, 503-978-9000. And don't miss it, you'll be sorry.
In times gone past, we find ourselves making excuses so that people reminded, ooh, I've got to get home and tend to the brand new message. I need some time alone. Can't this wait until I finish texting on my phone?